There was one more thing I definitely wanted to pull up, and before you said the thing that the Democrats hate more than anything else was Jesus, and you're not entirely wrong, especially when you have stuff like this now happening in multiple places across this country now. So this is the satanic altar and idol displayed in the Iowa Capitol building right now. Now, I want to point this out real quick because some people think like Satanists are a real thing. They really aren't. Basically, the established like Satanic Church of America, they perfectly say they are not a religious group. They say they do not believe in Satan, they don't believe in God, and the whole point is basically to mock Christians by trying to pull people away from God and into what they considered enlightenment values, quote unquote, when it comes to science and reason and logic, according to what they say. So they're allowed to put this altar up because they say religious freedom. But the Satanic Church itself says they don't believe in Satan or any theology whatsoever. So how the hell do they have religious rights to put up a satanic altar? They're
Because in
literally just
20,
a Christian hate group. That's literally all they are, and they're open about it. Yet they can still pull
because
crap like this.
because in 2019, under the Trump administration, they granted them status as a religious organization with the rights to all the uh, all the benefits of every other religious organization. That happened in 2019 under the Trump administration.
Again, why we have issues with Trump. But here's the thing. So I might piss off some libertarians with this, side of things, but I actually fully do not believe any sort of religious iconography other than Christianity should be allowed in any government building whatsoever. Like, I am that far with it. And it's not because I'm a Christian, actually. It has nothing to do with that. It's because our founding of this country was based on the principles of Christianity. All right, that was
Now, it
in
was.
the founding of this country.
Are you sure you're not a Christian nationalist? Because it was founded on Judeo-Christian and the belief of monotheism. Because a lot of our founders were deists and things like that. Um, so I don't think they would have agreed with this, but I don't think they would have actually been against the menorah going around.
No. Listen, our founding fathers would have gone far beyond what I'm saying. There was blasphemy laws in the founding of our country where you couldn't even voice your opinion against God because they did not consider that free speech. So the founding fathers were not at all on our side of free speech for the most part. They actually believed in a lot of restrictions on speech if it was against God, and in some cases even government, unfortunately. That they did have an idea of what was legitimate speech. What I'm saying is, though, the whole basis of how we have our government set up, the whole basis of many of the laws we have in a book, like innocent till proven guilty, are all based on principles of the Bible. All right, in our founding documents, in God we trust, right? It's on our money, it's in our Constitution, everything. Our rights are endowed by God. It is embedded in the very framework of our country as a Christian nation. Now, I'm not saying you go up and pull up signs saying convert to Christianity now in courthouses, but when the founding fathers looked at things like the Ten Commandments as the inspiration for many of the things they enacted, as well as other verses of the Bible, I see no issue with then putting those up in our government as a symbol of what our country is founded under. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean you have to convert to it. It just means this is what our country is founded as. And frankly, without a country that still believes in at least those values, even if they don't believe in Christianity, they have to still believe in those values for our country to even exist. So I have no problem with them putting up Christianity, Christian iconography in government buildings. But when it comes to any other religious group, I just don't think it probably should be there. And you can make the argument for the Jews because that was also a big part of course, what our founding country was, or our country was founded under as well. And obviously Old Testament. So you could still work that in, I think. But yeah. Judaism, Christianity, everything else, not in government buildings, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we argue over some of the silliest things sometimes. I think the key to everything you said is, as a country, we need a defining cultural tie that binds us all together. And for a long time, our religion was that tie. For a long time, the church was the center of every community, and that was where everything was going on. Good, bad, or indifferent, the church was a vital part of everything that happened in this country. Hasn't been perfect because the church was a vital part of the country when some pretty bad things were happening in our
Oh
own
yeah.
country, right? And so we know the history and all that. But just because there's negative history to things, it doesn't mean that having that shared purpose, that shared vision isn't important for us to come together. We made this change sometime in the 90s. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but they had this big kick in education circles to stop using the term the melting pot, because for all of my life we were up to that point we were the melting pot. People would come here and they would become Americans because
Yeah.
America was the shining city on the hill. America was the light, right? And if this light ever goes out, there's not going to be another one, because we are the shining city on the hill. And that changed. It changed. It said, no, we're not a melting pot. We want to be a stir fry. We want everybody to have their own individual, not lose their individual differences. We want to celebrate the differences. And what we've done is we've created this environment where everybody's against everybody. There is no shared cultural purpose for us as a nation anymore. We're not the melting pot, even though there's millions of people, more than there's ever been in the history of the country, flowing illegally across the border to be here. They're not coming to here to be American.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that for the most part, like obviously, a diversity in opinions is great. A diversity in values is destructive to a country. And that's just a reality, right? Like you have to have a similar set of values in order for a country to stay together. Because if we don't even share the same values, why are we together in the first place? Like, what would I really? I have nothing in common with someone living in LA, right? I just literally have almost nothing in common with them on a value set. So why are we sharing the same laws? Why are we sharing a lot of the same systems here? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's the whole reason why the states were supposed to have so much power, is because that way you wouldn't have to worry about this issue so much on the federal side, because if you had a different set of values as a different state, you kind of just stay in your state. You could be happy, little pockets, right? But now, because everything is nationalized, the values are really starting to butt heads seriously now. And you see, especially when it comes to stuff like abortion, right? Where like half the country is against it, half the country is for it. And that's not really something that can ever really easily be settled. There is not really a middle ground between whether or not you believe you're killing someone or you're not killing someone. There's not a good middle ground to find there. So when you don't have at least a similar set of values, it's going to cause a destructive force upon the country. And when you allow stuff like the Satanic Temple to start putting stuff up in the Capitol buildings, how does that not create more, how does that not throw a wedge even further into our country?
Yeah. There are wedges going up in every corner, because that's what, and this is a conspiracy theory, I guess, but that's what there's a certain group of people want. They want us arguing over, are you a man or a woman? They want us arguing
Yeah.
over gay marriage. They want us arguing over Satanic Temple putting up a thing, because if we really were arguing about the things that matter, like a government that is the most wasteful, inefficient, inept, corrupt in the history of the world, if we would argue those things, then their power would disappear. And
Well, I mean,
so
let's be
these
honest.
are intentional wedges.
Let's be honest. I think we would rather be talking about, them releasing the flight log for Epstein's Island over something like this, right? There's more important issues than stuff like this for sure. And you're definitely right. The government definitely has benefited from people being so divided to a certain degree, but divide and conquer. They know they can sit there and push segments of society against one another, and in doing so, if they can get their side above that finish line, it doesn't matter, right? But and you see, it's not just with them putting up stuff like the satanic idols and everything, but while they're doing stuff like this, in New York, they were taking down statues of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
So Thomas Jefferson is too offensive, but Satan isn't. So, I mean, they're literally at this point saying Thomas Jefferson is worse than Satan. I mean, this is what these people actually believe.
Well, and you know how much I love the Natural History Museum. The fact that they took down the Roosevelt statue, it means I'm never going to set foot in there again, because that just pisses me off. I'm not going back to support if they can't have Teddy Roosevelt sitting outside on his horse.
I mean, I'm glad I got a chance to go there before they took it down as well, because it is a cool museum. If I
I
actually believe
love
they
it.
actually really cared about history.
I absolutely love it. And that was another email unsubscribe I had to do.
Well, it's always, kind of funny because there's actually, it wasn't that long ago. A lot of these places weren't, I mean, they were bad, but they weren't nearly as bad as where they are right now. I mean, when we first started going to New York to watch some of the boxing matches over there, when we saw, well, I think the first one we saw was Golovkin, right? Gennady Golovkin,
Yeah.
middleweight champion of the world. I still got my shirt over there. That was a blast. That was a ton of fun. And going around New York was actually not that bad. Even when we went later to go see the heavyweight title fight, Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz, one hell of a fight too.
What the fight?
I got good tickets for
I've,
that one too. You paid for the travel, I paid for the tickets. I got some damn good tickets for that one.
I've never in my life seen a man survive what Deontay Wilder survived that night. Unbelievable. Well, until maybe until he fought the Gypsy King and he rose from the dead. That was kind of amazing too. But we weren't at that one.
I wish we were. I would love to see Tyson Fury live. But I mean, we used to, I think we both used to actually enjoy New York quite a bit. And I would usually say that actually New York, compared to some of the other cities I've been to, wasn't that bad. But, only in recent times, and I went there when COVID was going on. And again, right near Times Square, I was watching, a naked dude laying on the street, injecting himself with a needle in the middle of a blizzard, and cops right over there didn't do a thing. Meanwhile, while we were opening up one of our offices, there was like 6 cop cars that went and raided the upstairs because they had 6 people upstairs because that violated the COVID lockdowns. Like, that is the sort of lunacy that's going on in a lot of these places. But, so it's not surprising that in New York, of course, they're taking down Thomas Jefferson. But
the Jefferson statue, the Washington statue, where he gave his first inaugural.
Yes.
That one is either in danger or gone already.
I think it's gone already, if I remember correctly, but it might just be in danger. I mean, I won't be, if it's not gone already, it's going to be gone soon, right? Meanwhile, I'm not sure if you actually saw this. I don't have it pulled up right now. I'll see if maybe I can pull it up. But New York, after they took down the Thomas Jefferson statue, also put up a satanic statue as well over their courthouse. So I'll see if I can't pull it out real quick. Because it was wild. It was really right after. Let's see, images. So here it is. Didn't take long at all to find it.
Of all the sad things to watching them destroy a Jefferson statue.
So
the one of our founding fathers who believed more in the freedom of the people to decide.
So right after they took down the Jefferson statue, on one of their courthouses, they put up this weird tentacle, goat-horned female statue that was supposed to represent like the resistance towards patriarchy and Christianity, basically. So again, they're literally destroying the history of the country in any way they can, and they got no problem what they replace it with, clearly, because they're literally replacing it with actual Satanism. And again, I'm not over here being like this, crazy Christian going, oh, they're trying to bring about actual demons or any of that crap. They don't actually believe in Satan. All right, they're kind of more, they just know it pisses off people on the right, and they also know that if they can destroy Christianity, then that is their end goal. Like, that's all they want to do. They don't actually believe in Satan.
Their claim is logic and thinking, but let's just talk about art in general for a second. I was at the Louvre this year, and we got to see Venus de Milo and all the wonderful things, the Mona Lisa, all the wonderful things there. What has happened to art? What has happened to architecture? What has happened to art? There was so much beauty, and people were doing such amazing things with 1/1,000,000th of the resources to do it.
So me and Kat actually just had this conversation. We actually just had this conversation because we passed by like some weird modern house, and I went, that is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen in my life. And it was actually while we were cutting through Atlanta, because we went to Stone Mountain to see the Christmas lights and all that over there. By the way, the drone show there, really cool. I've never seen a drone show. That was actually really, really neat. But we drive to Atlanta and we saw these apartments going up, and they had this weird modern art style. And what I was telling her is that architecture represents the values of wherever it's located in. It really does. Whether it be, it's, you can just know so much about a culture based on what they build. Like, you can look at the Roman architecture and understand so much about them by just how they built their buildings. And you can then look at some place like, Atlanta, and see how they're building a lot of their more modern buildings and just see how ugly and crude and terrible it really is. And I still say it's because they don't have any true founding beliefs that allow for that inner beauty to ever come out through their art. And it's why, again, the art they do come with is stuff like this.
Look at government buildings anywhere. I mean, look at the new courthouse in our little old Northampton County down the road. I mean, there's no heart, there's no soul in architecture anymore. Even when you were talking about Roman and Greek and that type of architecture, even the simplest of structures, there was some character, there was some meaning behind what was there. Now it's all, I don't know, it's all function over form, I guess.
It was not even function, really, is the worst part, because when you really look at it, like, one of the houses we stayed at, we did Airbnb, it was a really old kind of like country style house. And it looked beautiful. And guess what? The inside had a very good flow. It functioned perfectly, right? Yet then you have these modern houses that look ugly as sin and have basically the same damn layout. It's not about function, really, for the most part. It's more... Now, I guess you could make the argument for, like, the apartment complexes and stuff like that, or even some of the government buildings, I guess. But I mean, because I'm more partial to the Gothic architecture like this, right? Where I just unimaginable skill that went into developing some of the stuff that they were able to build at that time period, right? And I mean, it just shows what they truly valued around that time. It was just unbelievably gorgeous. And I remember when we were in New York and I got to see the St. Patrick's Cathedral, which pales in comparison to some of these other buildings here. But even that was like, when you entered it, you could feel like just how much soul went into building it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, going to mass at that on St. Patrick's Day at that cathedral, that was an experience that we shared.
By the way, we're not Catholics. We just kind of walked in while they were doing mass and thought, well, this is really cool at St. Patrick's Day.
let's sit and take part, and we did. And
now, mind you, that does show something, right? Like, obviously, we're not Catholics, but at the same time, when we went into a Catholic church like that, we were as respectful as we possibly could be, right?
Yeah, hats off.
Yes.
Hats
Which
off.
Is rare at a lot of modern churches these days.
It's been rare for me for 54 years. I wear hats everywhere, man.
See, now if I wear a hat though, people just say I'm trying to hide my bald. So like, now I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna wear any hats because I just own it now. But the worst part is, it doesn't just end with them doing stuff like that, because one thing I did want to point out was, not only are they putting up the satanic altars, they desire to really divide the country so much that they're now having after-school Satan clubs. And this is in Tennessee. I'm not sure if you saw this one.
Where does this end?
Well, that's the problem. So when I say that, the only thing that should be allowed when it comes to it is stuff involving, either Judaism or Christianity, is because technically this is just carrying out a lot of stuff to its logical conclusion, right? I mean, it really is a logical conclusion of you have full liberty when it comes to this sort of stuff and government buildings and government schools, that this will be the end result eventually. Because how do you say no to it? But I know they had I thought they had an image here that really zoomed in on their flyer. I'm just going to zoom in here on the website, because their flyer was really interesting when you actually look at what was on it. So it's kind of hard to see, but the Satanic Temple is a non-theistic religion that views Satan as a literary figure who, I don't know why I can't. Before I was able to actually pull it up entirely. Basically what they're saying is that he, again, like I said before, it's a non-theistic religion, they say, so basically not a religion. And they look at Satan as basically a good figure, of course, when it comes to the story of the Bible, that he stood against the authoritarian God and gave people free will to choose what they wanted, because, that's exactly how that story is supposed to be read. But of course, the communists always do this, right? The communists always try to find ways to deconstruct things out of their true meaning. And
And we know there's no inherent danger in pursuit of carnal desire versus real meaning and purpose in life.
Well, there's a thing that without discipline, there is no freedom, right? That you have to stay away from certain things if you want freedom. Like a heroin addict, are you really going to say a heroin addict has actual freedom? I mean, yeah, you can make the argument that he should be allowed to do it because, oh, a free society. But at the same time, something that's addictive as heroin, once they do it, they've now lost their ability to be free. So, I mean, that's, I guess, more going into the whole libertarian versus, little L versus big L libertarian values on what drugs should be allowed. But, yeah, you do have to have some forms of discipline to be free, right? Just saying give in to whatever desire you want won't make you truly free. It'll instead make you a slave to whatever it is you're most addicted to in life.
Well, and that goes with any attachments. The attachment can be just about anything, a job, something that you're seeking, whatever you grow so attached to that you can't break away from it. But it's a whole lot different when that attachment is a physical addiction. So you,
Yeah.
Mr. Libertarian, there, you've kind of softened your stance on that
a
whole
lot of
drug
things,
thing,
yes.
because you've learned that all drugs just totally legal with no ramifications. There are ramifications.
All drugs are not made equal. Listen, just for anyone who might be watching, my position on it's pretty simple. I think, for the most part, most hallucinogenics should be allowed. I mostly because any drug that can be used responsibly, I think should be allowed. And if you don't use it responsibly, that's on you. But anything that creates a heavy physical addiction like heroin, where I'll put it this way. I've never met a responsible heroin user, okay?
How many heroin users are you hanging out with?
I worked for a tax company. You know the clientele.
Nah, you lived in that part of New York for a while. You saw more than you needed to see.
I did see quite a few heroin users there. Actually, more there than anywhere else, strange enough. Now, when I was in North Carolina, though, I did meet a couple meth users, though. So there's some of that too. And I don't think I've ever met a responsible meth user. But again, there's just something about the fact that right now, you now have in schools an after-school Satan club. How far have we fallen as a country?
How far, just as communities, have we fallen that the community hasn't stood up and fought back? But when you look at on the news and you see the school board meetings that are going on, and parents aren't allowed to read the books that are in their child's library because it's too offensive for the meeting, but yet it's okay for the child's library. And if you say that this book should not be in this particular library, you're accused of banning books because anything goes. I don't know. I don't know where it ends. I mean, that was your question. I don't know where it ends. But you see it. It's not just the Satan Club. You see it all over the place.
They say any book that's not in a public school library is apparently a banned book these days. So I'm just going to pull out this banned book right here, Starship Troopers by, Robert Hyland. I've never found this in a school library. So clearly it's a banned book. And they're clearly, trying to suppress it as much as possible.
Hey, back when I was a teenager, our school library banned Playboy and all the kind of stuff I really wanted to look at.
Hey, I got a very seriously banned book actually right here, and this one actually really is seriously banned in most schools. It's called the Bible.
Yeah. I got a couple of those sitting here behind me.
No, isn't it funny though? Like if they put a Bible in the library, it would probably cause a massive problem. Yet they can have an after-school Satan club, and it's no big deal.
I just don't. I don't have the answer because I'm a big proponent of individual freedom, and where I'm not gonna say I'm a libertarian, but I have libertarian leanings when it comes to these things, and so these are difficult. These are more difficult questions for me than maybe they should be